Thank you, Madam Chair and Ranking Member, and thank you, Mr. Attorney General, for being with us today. I'm not going to ask you a question on this. I just wanted to begin with expressing my deep concern about the flow of fentanyl into the country from the southern border. Senator Manchin mentioned West Virginia is at the tip of the spear, as you know. Senator Collins brought this up as a big issue. We've had meetings over the last 2 weeks being at home, and fentanyl is the killer. I mean, it is what's coming up through the southern border. So I would impress upon you how absolutely critical it is that the situation at the southern border has got to get better. I understand the demand side is what's driving this in a lot of ways, but if we can cut the supply, I think we can cut a lot of tragedy out of a lot of people's lives, and I know you understand that as well. Let me ask a question. According to, over the pandemic, we've seen a significant increase in first-time gun owners, with almost 60% increase in African-American gun owners, 50% increase in Hispanic gun owners, 43% in Asian-American gun owners. I guess I would ask you if you have a perception as to why this is, but the reason I'm asking the question and I'm interested in it, of course, I want to see our Second Amendment rights protected, but also the NICS system, which runs the background checks, goes through West Virginia, as you know. So do you have any kind of perception as to why gun ownership is up among different groups? And during the pandemic, I know it's been bigger in all groups. What would you attribute that to? And what kind of strain is this having on our NICS system?
So I don't know the answer, I'm sorry, to the first question. This is the kind of analysis that I, can't make up, and I can't even guess at. I don't know what the causes are. The second question I can answer, the more gun sales, the more difficult it is for the NICS system, but that's the job of the NICS system. So that's why we're asking for an increase in $6.2 million for the NICS system in the President's budget here to take into account the increase in the number of sales.
Right, and they can certainly use it, and we know we want accurate records, we want good records, and I mean, they're working 24/7, as you know. Recently, FBI Director Christopher Wray stated during an interview that there is a 59% increase in police officer killings, that is, officers being killed at a rate of almost 1 every 5 days. This is alarming to me. We had one of these incidences in our hometown. It's occurring at ambushes and attacks. You're asking for more money in $30 billion in mandatory spending for law enforcement help. What are you looking at in this area to protect? I know hiring is an issue, but protecting our force, and this is very concerning to me.
Well, it's extraordinarily concerning to me and to all of the 120,000 members of the Justice Department, most of whom are involved in law enforcement. So these are our brothers and sisters who are sometimes being targeted directly, sometimes being killed in the line of duty, and sometimes as a consequence of suicide. So we have a overall task force involved in investigating threats, which includes in particular threats against law enforcement and local. Are
you seeing the threats go up?
Yes, extraordinarily so. And you're right about, I don't know the number that Director Wray cited, but it sounds exactly right to me. Mm-hmm. The number is extremely worrying.
Well, I'd like to see the focus of some of this new funding go into this precise issue. The suicide issue, obviously, is something that's deeply troubling as well. I think a lot of it is a lack of respect for law enforcement in certain areas of the country, around the country. We're having trouble hiring in. We tried to do reform, couldn't get it across the finish line to try to help our local law enforcement recruit, train, do bias training and all kinds of things that we see are issues within our police department. But I'm very, very concerned about this. Let me ask you another question. I noticed in your statement that you're going to create a division to combat climate crisis. The reason I'm interested in this is I'm on the EPW committee. I'm the ranking member there. There is a lot of enforcement at EPA and other places on environmental justice. You're going to create a new Office for Environmental Justice. I mean, are these directives coming from the White House? Why now? And why, with all of the other efforts that are going on throughout all the different cabinet positions in the government, is this something that you're putting a high priority on right now?
So I think you rightly noted it's not a division. It's an office within our already existing Environment Division. The reason is that there is responsibilities both in the Environment Division and in the Civil Rights Division. And so a coordination of, particularly on the environmental justice issue, requires coordination between. So
Is that not being handled in other areas? Like, for instance, in the EPA enforcement, in their environmental justice office?
Well, to be honest, I don't know about their environmental justice office, but we have a Civil Rights Division which does prosecutions for civil rights violations. We have the Environment Division which does the affirmative cases, and we wanted to have some coordination between the two. That's the reason for having this office.
Well, I think I've mentioned about 3 things I would put in front of this, and thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator